don't know how much I'm going to get from this. I wanted to go to the 23rd chapter of Luke. I'd spoke about, finished John up and how John really doesn't mention much about the passion, and then Mike had mentioned that I'd probably touch on it, and he was right. He also doesn't really touch much on the two thieves on the cross either, and that's what I was kind of wanting to speak about just a little bit this morning. Probably not much out of it, but before we get to there, of course, the 23rd chapter, but starting at the 28th verse, there were people around that were mourning and being sentimental and everything for Christ and what was going on, and what had happened to him and what was happening. But it says an awful lot that he still has his eye on his children, an eye on the others, where he said he starts out because they were weeping for him and everything and lamenting him. And Jesus turned unto them and said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that are bare, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills to cover us. For if they do these things in the green tree, what shall they done in the dry? Now, not that I'd necessarily get the end of that, but it's talking about how all the persecution and everything that's that's going to come to Jerusalem and to the people, and it never fails to be amazing how much the Lord is always looking at the love of the children and love for the others, and how little he takes his consideration upon himself. But anyway, I just just touched on that. Let's see. Okay. Let me find it. And after that, there were also two others, malefactors, led him to be put to death. Now, the thing of it is outwardly, there's no difference between the two of them. And in fact, just by the fact that he uses the term malefactors, this probably, whatever they were being punished for, whether it be thievery or whatever, this probably wasn't their first go around. This wasn't the first time that they had transgressed or anything like that, especially if it had been enough to warrant crucifixion. And when they had come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him and the malefactors, one on the right and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiments and cast lots for his coat. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers said unto them, considering, saying, He saved others, let him save himself if he be Christ, the chosen of God. Well, it's because Israel didn't understand the magnitude of what the work that actually had to be done. Spoken about over and over and over. They wanted a worldly leader.
Yep.
They wanted somebody to come in and to free them from Rome, and to set them up with what basically world domination. As I said last week, there's no difference today than it was back then. but it's that look of whenever Peter said, about not going to not dying and everything like that, and he said, "Get behind me, Satan." Yeah. There's no wonder then he goes. He went on and referred to these people as the synagogue of Satan, and they looked at it as the worldly thing of, well, he did these miracles. They didn't give any. They didn't look at the spiritual significance of what was happening at all, because to them it's all the flesh. Why don't you take and save yourself off the cross? Well, because he's there willingly completing the work for his children, and the work which his father gave him. And the soldiers mocked him, coming up and offering vinegar, and it says, in the other gospels that he does say, "I thirst," and saying that if you be the king of the Jews, save thyself. And then the plaque of "This is the king of the Jews," and all that, and one of the malefactors were hanging railed on him and saying, "If thou be the Christ, save thyself and us." And there it says the one, but there's also nothing that says that the possibility of the other malefactor may have ridiculed him at some point as well. And it shows the stark contrast of what's about to take place, the quickening and the change of from the old man to the new man that takes place on the cross. And he says, and indeed, but the other answered, rebuking him, "Does thou not fear God?" And it says in, I believe it's Proverbs 9:10. I think it's in the 9th chapter, I know. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And this is showing, the beginning of his wisdom. And answer said, "Dost thou not fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation?" He's saying, you're hanging here as well, and you're going to ridicule this man? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I said unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." How beautiful to have reassurance from your Savior at that point. How much it would be nice for him to be able to say to us now, "You will be with me. You are one of my children." Instead of being faced with the doubt and the second guessing and the warfare that we experience every day, here's someone who had, and here's the thing. Number one, he obviously didn't follow the law, so it wasn't the law that saved him. Where was the water? There wasn't a baptism. Where was the preacher? It wasn't the hearing of the gospel that saved him. And see, the thing of this, whenever he said unto Christ, "Remember me," the change had already taken place. Because the flesh is not going to say, "Please remember me when you enter in the kingdom," because the flesh just that's the contrast between the two thieves, the old man and the new man. The old man, the things of the Spirit and the things of God are enmity against God. And he is the one that is ridiculing and belittling and all that, and has no understanding of what's going on and what's happening. And nor can he. He can't necessarily charge it charged against him because it's his nature. He's falling out what exactly he's supposed to be. Like that. Oh shoot, who was it that at the meeting made the reference about man that you don't. If you take water and pour it out on a roof, you don't have to tell it to go down the roof and in the gutter and to go downhill. It does what it does because that's what its nature is. And that's exactly what was going on with the old man, or the one thief and the old man. But there's that stark contrast of remember me whenever you come into thy kingdom. That the change had already taken place. The new man was already there. And the thing of it is, there's nothing that says that changed there, or that new man wasn't put there at that moment. It very well could have been. And I think it would speak more unto the spiritual significance if it had been put in at that very moment while he was on the cross. There's nothing to say that he couldn't have been quickened before even the crucifixion happened to him. Lord knows, if I be one of his, I have definitely transgressed myself plenty of times, and deserving the punishment that I received. So there's nothing to say that at that time but to me, I believe that quickening happened while he was on the cross. And like I said, there was no preacher there to preach to him. There was no works. There was no water, nothing like that. There was nothing there that would satisfy what the world tends to say is a necessity for salvation of today. There was none of it there. He obviously wasn't christened or nothing like that as a child. There was nothing there that anybody could point to that says that he did something to have a part in his salvation. And the thing of it, and even they say, well, remember me wherever you come in thy kingdom. He wasn't asking him to save him. And you can even say that there had to have been the new man there to begin with beforehand for him to say that. So the like I said, the change had already taken place, and there was nothing that he did to bring it about for himself. It was a freely unmerited gift. It was grace was the reason why he got what he got on the cross, and to have gotten that comfort. Like I said, even if you're hanging on the cross, and crucifixion is not a pleasant death. It's basically suffocating. You're either withstanding the pain of taking the pressure off your chest with your feet, with a spike through it, or you're hanging by your arms and the chest is not able to work right. So a slow, suffocating death, that's not pleasant at all. But at the same time, he's going through that and then has the reassurance and has the promise that he will dwell with his Father in paradise that very day. Whether he'd been on the cross and whether he'd been punished or anything like that, that's a beautiful thing. And I can, to a degree, if you take out the whole crucifixion part, kind of envy him. Not that I'm going to envy what he was going through, but to have that reassurance and to have that. One little also kind of, or not kind of, very important part to go on through after that. And it was about the sixth hour, which we know six is the number of man. And there was a darkness over all the earth until the ninth hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. But how was that veil rent? It wasn't rent from the bottom up. It was rent from the top down. Because that veil, that separation between man and God, was removed by God. Not by the priest, not by man, not by anything that we did or had done. It was Him who took and freely rent that veil between Him and His children. And shows it by renting it from the top down, so that nobody could think in some way, shape, or form. None of the high priests are going to walk in and go, well, obviously somebody did it because it starts down here and it goes upwards. No, and I don't think it was probably completely separated, for the very fact that they would know that it came from the top down. And when Jesus had cried a loud voice, He said, Father, into Thy hands I commend my spirit. And He gave up the spirit. You know, again, just to reiterate, Christ did not die or was not killed by a crucifixion. He was not killed by a centurion's spear. He freely gave up and had the power to give up His life unto the Father, and He had the very power to pick it back up.
That's right.
Thank you all very much.